This is Wake Island, present day. Had you been here in December 1941, this was ground zero. The Battle of Wake Island was one of the first major land battles of the Pacific War, fought between December the 8th and December the 23rd, 1941, occurring just hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Because of the international dateline, Wake Island became the site of one of the earliest American defensive victories, followed by an overwhelming Japanese assault that ultimately captured the island. Wake Island was a small US possession in the Central Pacific, consisting of 3 coral islets surrounding a lagoon. Before the war, it served as a refueling stop for Pan American Airways and had recently been fortified by the US military. The American garrison numbered about 520 officers and enlisted men of the 1st Defensive Battalion, U.S. Marine Corps, commanded by Major James P. S. Devereaux. They operated 6 5-inch coastal defense guns, 12 3-inch anti-aircraft guns, and machine guns positioned around the island. Air defense was provided by 12 F-4F Wildcat fighters of Marine Fighter Squadron VMF 211, led by Major Paul A. Putnam. Also on the island were approximately 68 U.S. Navy personnel, including communications specialists and medical staff under Commander Winfield S. Cunningham, who served as the island's overall commander. In addition, there were about 1,150 civilian construction workers employed by the contractor Morrison Knudsen, who had been building the military facility before the war. The U.S. Army presence was small but important. It consisted primarily of 5 officers and 46 enlisted men of the 4th Marine Defense Battalion's attached Army Communications and Weather Detachments, along with a handful of Army Air Force Communications personnel. The Army did not have an infantry combat unit stationed on Wake Island, and Army personnel primarily supported communications and weather reporting. The Japanese invasion force was much larger. The initial landing force consisted of approximately 450 Special Naval Landing Force troops, supported by cruisers, destroyers, patrol boats, and transports. Unlike later Pacific battles, this was primarily an operation conducted by the Imperial Japanese Navy rather than the Imperial Japanese Army. On December the 8th, Japanese bombers based in the Marshall Islands struck Wake Island. Most of the Marine fighters were caught on the ground, and 8 of the 12 Wildcats were destroyed during the first raid. Over the following days, repeated air attacks damaged defences and reduced the American ability to resist. On December the 11th, the Japanese attempted their first amphibious landing. This assault became one of the most remarkable defensive actions of the early Pacific War. The American defenders withheld fire until the invasion ships came within effective range of their coastal guns. When the Marines opened fire, they scored devastating hits. The destroyer Hayate was sunk by coastal artillery, the first Japanese warship sunk during the Second World War. The destroyer Kisaragi was destroyed after depth charges aboard the ship exploded following an attack by one of the surviving Marine Wildcats. Several other Japanese ships were damaged, and the landing force withdrew. It was the first Japanese amphibious invasion of the war to be repulsed. Following this unexpected setback, Japan assembled a much stronger force. The second assault included 2,500 landing troops, supported by additional warships and the aircraft carriers Soryu and Hiryu, whose aircraft eliminated the remaining Marine fighters and provided overwhelming air superiority. Before dawn on December 23rd, Japanese troops landed simultaneously at several points around Wake Island. Although the Marines fought stubbornly, using machine guns, rifles, and limited artillery support, Japanese forces gradually penetrated the defensive positions. Small groups of Marines launched local counterattacks, but they lacked reserves, ammunition, and any hope of reinforcement. Recognizing that further resistance would only result in unnecessary loss of life, Commander Cunningham ordered the garrison to surrender later that morning. American casualties totaled about 122 military personnel killed and 49 wounded during the battle. Approximately 1,600 Americans, including military personnel and civilians, became prisoners of war. During the Japanese occupation, many civilian workers were eventually evacuated, but 98 American civil prisoners remained on the island. In October 1943, following an American air raid, the Japanese commander ordered the evacuation of those 98 civilians. an act now remembered through the inscription left by one victim, 98 US PW 5-10-43. Japanese casualties were significantly higher than expected. During both assaults, they suffered approximately 700 to 900 killed and wounded, along with the loss of 2 destroyers and damage to several other ships. Although Wake Island fell after 15 days of resistance, its defense became a powerful symbol of determination. The Marines, sailors, soldiers and civilians had delayed a superior force and demonstrated that Japanese amphibious assaults could be resisted. Their stand provided a much-needed boost to American morale during the difficult opening weeks of the Pacific War and remains one of the most celebrated defensive actions in US military history. Many of the concrete fortifications built before and during the Battle of Wake Island still survive today, although decades of weather, salt water and abandonment have taken their toll. Scattered across Wake, Wilkes and Peel Islands are reinforced concrete coastal gun emplacements, anti-aircraft gun positions, command bunkers, ammunition magazines, observation posts and pillbox. Many of these structures were built by civilian contractors in 1941 and were later expanded by Japanese forces after the island's capture. The most recognizable remains are the open concrete emplacements that once held the 6 5-inch coastal defense guns of the Marine 1st Defense Battalion. Nearby are reinforced bunkers connected by trenches and protected firing positions, many of which still retain their original shape. Concrete aircraft revetments, bomb shelters and defensive walls can also be found around the former airfield. These fortifications are remarkably well preserved because Wake Island has remained isolated and largely inaccessible since the war. Today, they stand as some of the best preserved examples of early Pacific War defensive engineering, providing a rare and powerful reminder of the determined defense mounted by the American garrison in December 1941.